Hello everyone, this is Dorothy Guerrero from Global Justice Now. Welcome to our series of weekly interviews, Southern Perspective on the global coronavirus pandemic. COVID-19 is changing our lives and has forced us to break with our normal. In this interview series, I will feature representatives from social movements and progressive groups, especially in the Global South, that are addressing the pandemic. Global Justice Now wishes to share with you what is happening in their countries and, more importantly, how the movements are imagining and shaping the world anew. Today, I am with Yvonne Yanes, a founding member of Acción Ecológica, which is an Ecuadorian environmental organization established in 1986. She is also with Oil Watch, which is a resistant network against oil mining. And I think everyone knows that she's an active promoter of the Keep the Oil in the Soil campaign for many years, with Yasuni as the emblematic case. At the moment, she is seconded by Acción Ecológica to an indigenous environmental activist who was newly elected in the provincial prefect of Asubay province. Joining her, so we're lucky we have a tandem today, is Larry Loman from Corner House. Larry has been working for years and years as well on the politics of climate change, land rights, and environmental issues, and the politics of carbon. So welcome to both of you, and thank you for joining me. So what we hear or what we read here in the UK is that the Ecuador, especially the province of Guayaquil, seems to be the epicenter of the COVID-19 pandemic in the region. So can you tell us about the situation there?
Well, thank you, Dorothy. Hello to everybody that is seeing this video. Yes, Ecuador became very famous during the last weeks because the images that we could see in the media around the world was terrible. This situation is in Guayaquil, that is a big city, probably one of the biggest cities in Ecuador, is a port, and is a traditional province and city governed by neoliberal and populist governments that didn't make any policies since 20 years ago to try to support the municipality infrastructure regarding health, for example, or even trying to broke the huge inequalities that exist on this province. And this is why Guayaquil became the center of the pandemic here in Ecuador, with, I don't know, almost 3,000 COVID positive. That, of course, the figures are, we have to the figures with care, because we don't really know exactly how many people is really affected or infected. But Guayaquil is terrible to see that even many people is trying to flee from the province to other provinces, mainly in the Andes, in La Sierra, because the situation is becoming not only bad because of the virus, of course, but because of the situation that will come regarding, you know, the 70% of the population in this province is living day by day, living in the streets, as we can see this in many of the countries in the south, you know, in Philippines, in Thailand, and everywhere, in India. This situation probably will be also very difficult for all these millions of people that live day by day, and they should go outside to continue the life. So also Guayaquil is a city with is a tropical city with every day almost more than 30 degrees. So even the lockdown is completely ridiculous for them, because they stay in one room, 10 people with 35 degrees.
Yeah, that sounds terrible. So how are people coping with that? Apart from those in Guayaquil, but also those in other sectors of society, how are they addressing this issue and coping with the situation?
Well, I think that I have to mention first of all that in the Andes, for example, all the campesino society has been working continued alive and working a lot to produce all the food that in the cities we are consuming during these almost 3 weeks or 1 month of lockdown. So, and the COVID to this population, we don't really know how it's affecting them in the point of view of their health. Mm-hmm. Nobody is taking care of them in terms of going to make the tests. Nobody is taking care of, you know, they don't have hospitals near them. So we don't really know what's happening. But what some people is saying that now the COVID is now spreading even in the rural areas of the Andes, provinces. So we will not know exactly what is going to happen there, but I think it could be a tragedy. But meanwhile, you know, the campesinos, they never stopped to work the land. They never stopped, you know, to produce their own food and also to produce food that is being sold in the cities. Mm-hmm. The cities here, for example, in Cuenca, where we are now, the markets are still open, the popular markets. But of course, with a lot of controls. You can go only one particular day of the week. You can go only with your ID card, with a particular number of your card. So many of, I was seeing yesterday that many of the people that used to sell the products in the markets, they are not selling all the products. So many of them are being rotten and they cannot really sell, and they are continue working the land. I mean, but all the problem that we will have probably is that the lack of access to the seeds.
Yeah. So people's livelihoods are also greatly impacted. So any of you can respond to this. How do you see, what is the exit strategy of the government? How will the government hope to withstand this pandemic?
Economically, I think that they are talking about, you know, some particular, ¿cómo se dice? Financial help, you know, that is $90, that is almost nothing, for once or twice in 2 months. And after that, I don't know. The problem is that we are seeing that the policies will be oriented more in terms of, you know, the wrong solutions. They are talking about expanding oil activities, mining activities. They are trying to ¿cómo se dice? To reform the constitution, assembly, in order to allow, for example, the GMOs cultures, to allow some decisions to exploit ore or mining in protected areas. So they are doing exactly the same that Trump is doing. That means weakening all the laws and every norm that can be protecting areas, you know, the health of the people, forbidding transgenics, etc. These will be completely gone. So I think that the solutions are taken a very bad and preoccupied way.
So how are the social movements responding to this? Are there any initiatives, whether in the provincial or the national level, where social movements are trying to address the issue and doing their initiatives? If they are forming organizations, what are their demands?
I think that there are several initiatives, but more in terms now of protecting the well-being of the peoples. For example, CONAGI, the National Indigenous Organizations, are taking a lot of efforts to make people understand what could happen if the COVID arrived to the more isolated indigenous populations, for example. Or what is going to happen if the COVID go into the territories of indigenous peoples. Because what is happening is that the peoples, the indigenous communities and peoples, they are locking down themselves, all the territories or the communities from people that go in. But who knows that, for example, just an example, in March, it was a mining conference in Canada. Even during the crisis already, but they held this mining conference in Canada. And the mining companies invited and brought some indigenous peoples, you know what they used to do, you know, to bring indigenous peoples to say that the mining activities are fine and they accept, etc. But of course, some, you know, some bad leaders of these organizations. And what happened now is that these indigenous peoples, they have the COVID. So they catch the COVID in Canada, and now they came back, and they are probably spreading the COVID among their Shuar indigenous communities. So the CONAIE and the indigenous organizations are denouncing this and also taking care of what is happening in the territories. But other organizations like the peasant organizations or organizations that of familiar agriculture are organizing, for example, to take actions regarding of what is going to happen with the next cycle of, ¿cómo se dice? Siembra. Planting. Yeah, the planting of the products. So they are having, you know, virtual meetings or taking decisions of what they are going to plant. They will have problems with the seeds in the next months. So also the peasant organizations and los campesinos, they are organizing. And also in a local level, very local level, for example, I know that in Quito, some neighborhood organizations, they are, you know, maintaining, you know, some actions, but mainly to provide food for the people that, you know, cannot go out if they are elders or sick people, things like that. I think, and at the level of some local governments, like in the province of Azuay, what they are doing is trying to, like a humanitarian way, to give, you know, some baskets of food for the people that are needing.
Like a relief.
Yes, a relief. So yes, I think that this is a general example.
Yeah. So at this point, I would like to look at the possibilities for interconnection, for linkages. So what do you see as the possibilities for international solidarity? Are there efforts to link up with outside movements? And maybe Larry, you can also join here. What do you see as possible UK Ecuador link on this? What would be the message for movements here in the UK?
Well, I don't know. I mean, like always, I think one of the first and biggest challenges is just to try to understand what's going on in a way which is not, you know, confined to biology or physical science or epidemiology and so forth. And I think, I mean, as usual, I think one of the most important ways of focusing on the crisis is to look at it from the point of view that capital looks at it as a labor issue. I mean, right now, different parts of capital and businesses are panicking about the fact that there aren't enough people working that they can extract surplus profit from. And obviously, you know, we can see this in both the US and the UK. There's a lot of pressure from business to try to, you know, forget about, you know, the deaths, get people back to work so we can continue to make money. And this is, I mean, this is, I think, a situation which we see around the world. And it's, I think in the weeks ahead, it's going to be really important to have a clear international understanding of you know, the conflict between you know, the imperative to protect people's lives, to try to come up with a you know, a different way of doing things, and the imperatives that business is following, which is to get people back to work as soon as possible, and you know, make as few changes as possible in the system. I think that this understanding is, you know, it seems obvious, but I don't think it's really taken hold yet among all of the popular movements. And I think that's a prerequisite for more international cooperation and international action on these issues.
That's a very important message. So, what will be your last message for for groups here. Yvonne, how can we build bridges?
Qué difícil. Well, we were talking in Acción Ecológica virtually just yesterday. How, first of all, to try to answer the question, how we see the world after this crisis. No? And I think that maybe I would like to say three things, a message with the three ideas. First of all, I think that we have to learn how to work on movement building, at least until the end of this year, without the possibility to gather, to meeting, you know, to organize, to march, you know, the protest. Everything will be different, at least during the next months until the end of the year. I really think that it will be very difficult to have the chance to gather and to work as before. So we have to think about this. And this not only nationally, but also internationally. For example, with the groups that we usually work together in UK and in other groups, you know, in Europe and in other continents. I think that we have to together to think what will be the role of the state in this situation, because you know, the state. Now we understand the importance to have, you know, public policies, to have a state that take care of the people, the food, the health, etc. And I guess that this will make us as movements to understand that we have to, part of our struggle should be also to maintain this state strong. Let me explain a little bit that, of course, here in the case of Ecuador, we are a plurinational state. So the state must be strong to guarantee some conditions, you know, that the campesinos can cultivate their land, that the indigenous peoples can be living safe in their territories, and that we have a good health system, etc. But at the same time, the state should respect, you know, the rights of the indigenous peoples in their territories, to respect, you know, many other rights that probably could be constrained with a strong state. So we have to, you know, to discuss a little bit exactly what will in this, and this is important for our struggle and our work, of course. And the third thing that I would like to mention is that contrary that many social movements think that oh, we are going to change because, you know, we understand that we have been doing bad things, you know, the governments and the states and the people. I think that this will be opposite to that. I think that all the extractivist policies will be worse. All the depletion of the 5G with all the problems, for example, will be worse. I think that the situation will be very, very bad in terms of what we have been fighting against. So we have to think these three things, how to work differently during at least 1 year, to understand the role of the state regarding to our work, and third, to understand that things will be worse in terms of, in particularly Acción Ecológica, Oil Watch, etc., we have been fighting against, like mine, oil, transgenics, other things like, you know, this 5G and things like that. So I think that, just to continue working together and trying to see how can we do.
Yeah. Well, Yvonne and Larry, those are very important messages, and we highly appreciate that you spend your time with us. And I hope that we will be doing more of this. And I know that there have been a lot of initiatives now with people, movements meeting online and talking about what kind of post-pandemic world do we want, because there is a general understanding that we can't simply go back to normal because that normal was problematic in the first place. And if there will be a new world forming, the foundation is being built now, being shaped by ideas that are floating around and being discussed and being shared by movements worldwide. So thank you very much for sharing your time with us and your ideas.
Thank you.
And well, we hope to see you soon here in the UK or elsewhere in those important international meetings of building a new world. Thank you very much.
Okay.